Hello, Dr. Omahani here. I hope you're all doing well and in the best of health. Today, I'd like to take you on a journey, a quiet afternoon train journey that turned into a deep moment of reflection and learning. We'll explore how even a simple public transport experience can open doors to understanding human nature, which is, after all, the heart of homeopathy. This is especially for our budding homeopaths, those of you studying in medical school who often feel the weight of not having direct access to patients, or feel uninspired by dry textbooks, or find it difficult to shadow experienced doctors due to time or opportunity constraints. But what if I told you that learning the essence of homeopathy doesn't always require a clinic or a patient in front of you? Sometimes, life becomes your classroom, and strangers become your silent teachers. All you need are eyes that observe deeply, and a heart that listens without words. Homeopathy is unique that way. It teaches you to see what others miss, to feel what others ignore. And in doing so, it turns everyday moments into profound lessons. Let me share one such experience. It was a quiet afternoon. The station was unusually calm, almost deserted, with barely 10 people scattered across the platform. I was standing with my mother, waiting for a local train. We had positioned ourselves near the ladies' coach section, chatting gently, lost in our conversation. My face was turned toward her, fully immersed, when suddenly, without warning, someone brushed past me, almost pushing me aside. It was so abrupt, so close, that it left behind an uncomfortable trace, a feeling of violation that made me instinctively turn around with anger and disbelief. Who would do that? On a platform this empty, why would anyone choose to pass so close? But just as I turned, ready to confront, my emotions melted in an instant. There she was. A young woman, wearing dark glasses, gently clutching a white and red cane. She was blind. My heart softened immediately. She quietly made her way to the same ladies' section and stood still, waiting for the train, just like us. I began observing her closely. There was something so graceful about her presence, so quietly powerful. And then it struck me, her outfit. She wore a beautiful blue Lucknow kurti paired with white leggings. Her jewelry, her hair clip, each detail matched perfectly with her attire. How? How did someone who couldn't see herself manage to carry such harmony in appearance? It wasn't just matching clothes, it was dignity, it was self-respect, it was strength. She didn't stand near the section reserved for the disabled. She didn't seek help. She simply folded her cane and stood with an air of self-reliance. And there I stood, speechless. That moment wasn't about sympathy. It was about admiration. It was about realizing how often we take our own abilities for granted. It reminded me how observant a homeopath must be, not just of symptoms and speech, but of the unspoken stories carried in posture, energy, choices, and silence. So to all students out there, remember, you don't need a patient on a stretcher to begin learning. The world around you is whispering its truths if only you learn to listen with your heart. Observe not just with your eyes, but with curiosity and compassion. Even without a single medical instrument in hand, you're holding two most powerful tools already, your perception and introspection. And that, dear future homeopaths, is where real learning begins. For a moment, I paused, and in that stillness, something shifted within me. A wave of realization washed over me. How often do we forget to thank the Almighty for the simplest, yet most profound gifts? I've been blessed with sight, the ability to see the world in all its colors, to read faces, to walk freely without fear of what lies ahead. I can sense where I'm going, recognize danger, beauty, and everything in between, all because of these eyes. Eyes I never truly appreciated. Never once thanked for. And in that moment, everything around me began to feel different. My perspective shifted. I began to wonder, how does she, that blind girl, navigate the daily chores of life? How does she dress so impeccably? How does she handle her household, move through crowds, carry herself with such grace without ever seeing the world I take for granted every single day? That moment gave me a mirror, a rare chance to look within. Introspection wrapped itself around me. I felt humbled, softened, and more connected to the very soul of homeopathy, which teaches us to feel deeply, observe quietly, and respect the unseen layers of human experience. Soon, the train arrived, and we stepped in. The blind girl boarded too, quietly folding her cane and joining the crowd. Though the train was quickly filling up, we managed to find 2 seats. But within minutes, more and more people rushed in. The compartment began to buzz with movement, voices, and the usual jostling that accompanies public travel in a crowded city. And then, through the crowd, a woman stepped in. Her gait was careful, her face pale with discomfort. She looked to be in her late 30s, dressed modestly in a cotton kurti and a soft dupatta wrapped around her large belly. There was something deeply vulnerable in her expression, a mixture of pain, exhaustion, and a desperate need to be left alone. She softly pleaded, "Please, let me just stand here, don't push, please don't touch me." She moved slowly toward our side and gently added, "I had an operation." She pointed towards her belly. I immediately offered her my seat. The relief on her face was almost visible, like a weight gently lifted. She sat down, exhaled a long, shaky breath, and after a pause, she whispered, "It's been just 6 days since my C-section. My baby and family have gone by car to the hospital, but I couldn't handle the pressure of potholes, so I chose to travel alone by train. 60 kilometers. Post-surgery. 6 days after a major abdominal operation, one that cuts through 7 layers of the body. I was stunned. My heart, my mind, everything within me felt shaken. I kept thinking, how can someone bear such pain, climb into a crowded train, and hope to reach their destination untouched and unharmed? How fragile her body must be, and yet, how fierce her spirit. There was a sudden hush in the coach. All the women around, young, middle-aged, elderly, witnessed this moment with awe. Each face wore an expression of shock and silent worry. An unspoken prayer passed between us, hoping she would have a safe, undisturbed journey. And then came the murmurs, soft conversations filled with concern and care. One woman asked gently, "Why are you traveling so far? Couldn't you have gotten your stitches removed from a nearby hospital?" A logical question, perhaps. But the pain of her decision echoed louder than any reasoning. Each woman offered her perspective, some sharing personal stories, others simply voicing disbelief. It was a moment where pain became collective. A complete stranger's suffering had tied together a compartment full of women, each moved in her own way. That train ride wasn't just a journey of distance, it was a journey inward. A reminder of the silent struggles people carry, of the invisible strength hidden behind soft words, and of how empathy can awaken even in the most crowded of places. Then she softly said, "The doctor insisted I come there. He didn't allow removal of stitches anywhere else." At that moment, though I was sitting as a doctor, something within me trembled. A question arose: are we, as doctors, truly fulfilling our responsibilities with sincerity? Or have we become so entangled in the web of profit and protocol that we sometimes push patients to take decisions that endanger their own well-being? In homeopathy, we are taught to offer comfort, deep, emotional comfort, to those already burdened by suffering. Our role is not just to heal the body, but to ease the soul's pain. Yet here was a woman, just 6 days post-surgery, climbing onto a crowded local train, clutching her healing wound, navigating her way alone through a sea of strangers, because a doctor refused a simple procedure at a local clinic. A procedure that any skilled hand could have performed. Clean, safe, and close to home. This wasn't just disheartening, it was deeply disturbing. It felt like a betrayal of trust, a crack in the very foundation of what it means to be a healer. The very place where she sought comfort became a source of distress. It forced me to make a silent promise to myself, that I would always strive to be the kind of doctor who gives the patient what is best for them, not what is convenient or profitable for me. And just as I was processing the emotional weight of seeing that blind girl earlier, her silent strength, her quiet dignity, I was now witnessing another woman's silent battle. The pain of one hadn't even settled within me, and here came another story, one layered with solitude and sacrifice. I kept thinking, there was no husband by her side, no mother, no sister, no friend. Not a single relative to walk beside her, to help her step off the train safely, to shield her from the crowd that could easily jostle her healing abdomen. Where were the people we expect to stand by us in our weakest moments? And in that raw, aching moment, I realized how brutally life tests some people. It stabs at your vulnerabilities, strips you of support, and still expects you to carry on. But this woman, she was doing it all, alone, with silent courage stitched into her very being. As I stepped out into the world that day, I saw strength. Real strength. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't ask for recognition, but stands tall when no one is looking. And that kind of strength moves you. It touches something deep within you. This is what homeopathy teaches us, not just science, but sensitivity. Not just cure, but connection. It trains your heart as much as your mind. I often think of the old tales, how wise kings would roam their kingdoms in disguise, dressed as beggars, to understand the real sufferings of their people. Only then could they rule with justice and compassion. In the same way, when a doctor steps out into the public, when they observe not from a pedestal but from among the people, their perception deepens. You begin to truly feel your patients. You begin to recognize that discomfort isn't always physical, often it's hidden beneath layers of emotional distress. And this sensitivity even helps when you're miles away, doing consultations online. I recall a case I must share. A young mother whose 3-year-old son was undergoing treatment for metastatic cancer under my care. When a child suffers such a grave illness at such a tender age, it often points to a deeper emotional imprint, sometimes from the mother's own trauma during pregnancy. When I first took her case, I discovered layers of suppressed rage, resentment, and a heavy sense of guilt. She came from a very poor background, and had been severely tortured for dowry. She carried all that pain silently, and then gave birth to a child who bore an unimaginable burden. As her child started to show signs of recovery, her husband reached out for a consultation for her. When I spoke to her on the phone, something felt off. She wasn't the same woman who had earlier shared her story with such depth and openness. Now her voice was flat, her answers short and robotic. Yes. No. No. Yes. Something in me stirred. I knew she was uncomfortable. So I gently asked, "Is your husband around?" She softly said, "Yes." In that moment, I didn't probe further. I simply reassured her, "Don't worry, I won't ask anything uncomfortable. You're safe. You'll be fine." Her history was already with me. I prescribed the required medicine and let it go. Within a week, she was fine. This is what sensitivity does. It helps you see beyond words. It helps you understand silences. And it reminds you that the real essence of healing begins not with a prescription, but with compassion. When you begin to notice the smallest of details around you, your power of perception deepens. You start to think more profoundly, see more clearly, not just with your eyes but with your heart. This heightened awareness becomes one of the most invaluable tools for a homeopath. But such sensitivity isn't nurtured in isolation. Staying confined to the comfort of home limits your exposure. Even when you travel by car, you're still enclosed. It's only when you step into the world, especially into the pulse of public life, like traveling by train, that you truly begin to observe. The train, in particular, is a treasure trove of human stories, raw emotions, and unfiltered realities. Every journey becomes a lesson, every face a story, every silence a chapter. As a homeopath, these experiences enrich your understanding of human nature. You realize that dissatisfaction is a common thread among all, rich or poor, healthy or ailing. No one seems truly content. And that in itself becomes a teacher, to be grateful for what you do have, and to cultivate the habit of looking at those who have less health, less comfort, fewer choices. There was a moment that left a deep impact on me. While traveling in a crowded train, we noticed a woman, alone, fragile, and visibly uncomfortable. She had undergone a C-section just 6 days ago. Her stitches were still fresh, and she stood there amidst the rush, surrounded by strangers, managing everything on her own. Just witnessing her struggle, without her saying a word, opened up a new layer of empathy within me. It made me think, how many of us truly recognize the unseen battles others are fighting? As we prepared to get off the train, my mother gently consoled her. She advised her to use an AC local for her return journey, a small change that could make a big difference for someone in her condition. After all, you can't go around explaining your vulnerabilities to everyone, and in a crowd like that, no one pauses to care. But sometimes, even a brief moment of kindness from a stranger becomes a pillar of strength. That's the kind of communication we need, not just as doctors, but as humans. When someone feels seen, heard, and comforted by a complete stranger, it plants a seed of hope in them. And that very hope reflects back on you too. In those fleeting moments, you become someone's safe space. Their religion, their background, their story, it all becomes secondary. What matters is your shared humanity. So whether you're a homeopath or just a human passing through life, let your eyes stay open. Let your heart stay soft. Help wherever you can, even if it's just through words that empower, encourage, and soothe. Don't underestimate the value of your presence or your voice. Sometimes, that's all someone needs to keep going. If you ever find yourself hesitant, unsure of how to approach a patient or how to connect, start by observing life itself. You don't need a formal setting to practice empathy. The world is your classroom. Every passerby, every subtle gesture, every anxious look, they all speak volumes. Like the elderly woman I saw outside a hospital, sitting on a staircase, not on a chair. Rubbing her hands, eyes lost in a whirlwind of worry. She wasn't saying a word, but her body was screaming in silence. And I felt it. That emotional turbulence teaches you how to read people, not through their words, but through their unspoken pain. When you begin to sense those emotions deeply, it transforms the way you treat patients, even through online consultations. You become more attuned to who's afraid, who's anxious, who's holding back. You make sure they feel safe, understood, and supported. That's where healing begins, not just with medicine, but with genuine human connection. Every time you lift someone who's feeling broken, every time you guide someone from a place of darkness toward light, you heal a part of yourself too. Share hope. Tell them about others who have survived worse. Remind them of what they still have. Because most times, our sadness stems not from lack, but from losing sight of our blessings. When patients come to us, they often arrive with a mind clouded by fear and helplessness. Their ability to think clearly is paralyzed. But when you gently shine a light on certain forgotten corners of their life, gratitude, hope, faith, the fog starts to lift. And even those in deep depression begin to open up and walk toward healing. And sometimes, we meet incredibly strong women whose strength wasn't a choice, but a necessity. Their circumstances gave them no other option. Their stories aren't just inspiring, they're humbling. So let us always pray, may the Almighty soften our hearts, grant us humility, and bless us with the strength to heal and help those who are suffering. For He alone is the true healer. I shared this experience with you because stories like these have the power to teach us without us having to endure them ourselves. That's the beauty of shared wisdom. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next case study video. Until then, practice well, observe deeply, and take care of yourself and others.
उन लोगों को देखे जो सड़क में फुटपाथ के किनारे बैठे लोगों के फेंके हुए बर्गर्स को, उनकी फेंकी हुई रोटियों को, उनका फेंका हुआ कूड़ा में खाना, उसको निकाल के उसको साफ करके उसको खा रहे हैं। जब उसको देखता है तो शुक्र महसूस होता है। जब आदमी अपने से नीचे वालों को देखता है तो अपनी हालत बेहतर जब दिखाई देती है तब उसको शुक्र पैदा होता है, शिकायत नहीं। अपने से ऊपर देखता है, शिकायत पैदा होती है। अपने से नीचे देखता है, शुक्र पैदा होता है। शिकायत से गम पैदा होता है, शुक्र से खुशी पैदा होती है। अगर वो खुश रहना चाहता है, शुक्र की जिंदगी जिए। अगर वो ना खुश रहना चाहता है, शिकायत वाली जिए। नुकसान उसको है, अल्लाह का नुकसान कुछ नहीं है। तो खुश रहने का एक तरीका ये भी है अल्लाह का शुक्र करना। माल के सिलसिले में आदमी को चाहिए कि वो नेमतों का, माल का, दुनिया का इंतजाम अपनी तरफ करने की बजाय अल्लाह की तरफ करे। अगर मैं नहीं होता तो बिजनेस का क्या होता? मेरे बाप ने इतना कम छोड़ा था, मैंने देखो इतना बड़ा बनाया उसको। मैं हूं, मैंने सब किया है। हमारा खेत कुछ भी नहीं था, उसमें देखो मैंने खेत को कैसा किया, लहलाता मैंने बनाया इसको। जमीन का सीना फाड़ के तूने उगाया? नहीं, वो तो अल्लाह ने उगाया। उसमें फल किसने दिया? तू दिया? नहीं, अल्लाह ने दिया है। तिजारत में नफा किसने दिया? अल्लाह ने दिया है। बारिश अल्लाह ने बरसाया, जमीन से अल्लाह ने उगाया। तूने क्या किया? तूने खाली हल चलाया, जमीन का सीना फाड़ दिया, बस इतना ही किया तूने, बीज डाला उसमें। बस आदमी अपनी तरफ नेमतों का इंतजाम करता है। आदमी में ये होना चाहिए कि जो कुछ उसके पास है, नंबर एक अल्लाह ने दिया, अल्लाह का शुक्र मानने वाला हो, और जितना दिया उसमें खुश रहने वाला हो, शिकायती ना हो। क्या अल्लाह दिया ही नहीं मेरे को, इस साल बारिश नहीं बरसाया अल्लाह ने, कैसी बारिश बरसाया अल्लाह ने, बहुत थोड़ी। माल है, अल्लाह ने दिया, क्या माल दिया अल्लाह ने? इतने बुरे बुरे लोग हैं, उनको फिरौन को इतना दिया, इसको इतना दिया, कलमा पढ़ रहा सुबह से शाम तक, कुछ दे रहेंगे अल्लाह? बाद वक्त आदमी क्या करता है, शिकायत करता है, हाथ पांव अल्लाह ने दिए, दीन अल्लाह ने दिया, सब कुछ अल्लाह ने दिया, सेहत अल्लाह ने दी, कम है। तो आदमी की निगाह हमेशा किस पर होती है, क्या नहीं है पे, क्या है पे नहीं होती। लिहाजा हमेशा क्या जीता है, नाशुक्रा जीता है। एक प्रोफेसर ने कॉलेज में एक बड़ा सा चार्ट लाके व्हाइट कलर का चिपकाया ऐसा, और एक ब्लैक स्केच पेन लिया, पेन होता है, उससे एक धब्बा लगाया, उसके ऊपर एक डॉट बना इस तरह से। स्टूडेंट्स को पूछा क्या दिखता है, सबने कहा डॉट, ब्लैक डॉट, काला धब्बा। उसने बोला चार्ट नहीं दिखता है। समझ आ रहा है? मैं इतना बड़ा सफेद चार्ट लाके लगाया यहाँ पे, आपको वो नहीं दिखा, मैंने सिर्फ इतना धब्बा लगाया वो दिखा। तो इंसान की मेंटालिटी ऐसी है, इंसान सफेद कम देखता, काला ज्यादा देखता उसमें। आदमी जो अल्लाह ने दिया कितना देखता है, कभी बैठ के बोलता है अल्लाह तूने हाथ दिए, बहुत बहुत शुक्र है, अल्लाह कान दिए, आंख दी, जबान दी बोलने के लिए, दांत दिए इतने सारे, और खाने के लिए तूने क्या कुछ नहीं दिया, गुर्दे, फेफड़े, तिल्ली, वजरी, अंदर क्या कुछ नहीं दिया, सब कुछ दिया, हाथ पांव सलामत रखे, कदम दिए चलने के लिए, इतनी सारी नेमतें दी, फल बनाए तूने खाने के लिए, हमको तरकारियां दी तूने, अनाज दिया तूने, ये क्या नहीं दिया अल्लाह तूने। कभी बैठ के बोलता है बैठ के बीच और बैठेंगे सर को सर जोड़ के, तो क्या नहीं अपने पास, क्या नहीं। कभी बैठ के बीच और बोलते क्या क्या है अपने पास, नहीं करता आदमी। शुक्रगुजार कैसे बनेगा, क्या है देखेगा तो शुक्र आएगा, क्या नहीं है देखेगा तो ना शुक्रिया आएगी, शिकायत पैदा होगी। अल्लाह की शिकायत नहीं करना चाहिए, चाहे वो अमीर हो या गरीब हो, उसको चाहिए कि अल्लाह का शुक्र करने वाला हो, अल्लाह की नेमतें गिनने वाला हो। अल्लाह ताला फरमाता है फकुलू मिम्मा रज़क़कुमुल्लाहु हलालन तय्यिबा, तो खाओ जो अल्लाह ने तुमको रिज़्क़ दिया है, अल्लाह के रिज़्क़ में से खाओ, हलाल और तय्यिब, हलाल और तय्यिब चीजें खाओ। वश्कुरू निअमतल्लाहि इन कुंतुम इय्याहु तअबुदून, और अल्लाह की नेमत का शुक्र करो अगर वाकई तुम अल्लाह के बंदे हो, अगर वाकई तुम अल्लाह की इबादत करते हो तो अल्लाह का शुक्र करो। अपना कमाल मत बताओ, अल्लाह ताला का शुक्र करो कि अल्लाह ने दिया, तुम्हारे बस में कुछ नहीं था, और नाशुक्री मत करो, जितना भी अल्लाह ने दिया है वो तुम्हारा हक नहीं था, अल्लाह ने अपनी तरफ से तुमको दिया है, उसका शुक्र करो। शुक्र करने से नेमत क्या होगी, बढ़ेगी।